So without further ado, we move on, ladies and gentlemen, to the next, which is a panel discussion. We have a very eminent panel with us. This panel is going to be moderated by Dr. B. Rajender, who's the Joint Secretary, Crops and Seeds, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. Mr. Rajender will have a presentation, and then the panel will join in a discussion. On the panel, Principal Scientist, Chickpea Breeding and Theme Leader for Crop Improvement ICRI SAT, Dr. Pooran Gaur. We also have Director Crystal Research, Ms. Hetal Gandhi, and Managing Director Gigi Patel and Nikhil Research Company, Mr. Nirav Desai. I'd like to request our moderator, Dr. Rajender, our panelists, Dr. Pooran Gaur, Ms. Hetal Gandhi, and Mr. Nirav Desai to please join us on stage. Once again, as our panelists join in, I'd like to reiterate, if you have mobiles connected devices, please keep them silent. No break at all, just except for the lunch break. And question answers, time permitting, and always at the discretion of the moderator. At this point, we're slightly behind schedule. We do hope to catch up during the day. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, before we start the presentation, I'd like to remind you this panel discussion is going to be moderated by Dr. Rajender Gaur, who is the Joint Secretary, Crops and Seeds, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. Before he moderates the panel, he'll step up at the podium. He has a small presentation, and post which he'll step back to his seat and start the model. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished participants, my fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to present to you on enhancing pulses production on sustainable basis. Just I'll give a snapshot of what Government of India is doing on pulse production. And the pulses constitute a very important dietary constraint for humans and animals because of its nutritious value. And protein content of grain legumes is more than that of wheat and rice. And then besides protein, these pulses are also important source of 15 essential minerals required by human beings. Pulses occupy a unique place in India's nutritional and food security. As you all know, India is the largest producer, consumer and importer of pulses. And in the year 2016-17, India has produced all-time record production of 22.95 million tons. The previous highest pulse production was 19.25 million tons in 2013-14. As you all know, the major pulses producing states are Madhya Pradesh, which about 27% of total pulse production is from Madhya Pradesh. Maharashtra produces 16%, Rajasthan 13%, Uttar Pradesh about 10%, Karnataka 5%. So these states occupy about 90% of the total production, of the total pulse production. Gram occupies, it's a 41% of total pulse production is gram, and then followed by arhar, then urad about 11%, moong 9%, and other Rabi pulses like peas, lentil, all they constitute about 13%, and other kharif pulses about 4%. It is about a target and production of individual pulse crops from 2012-13 to 2016-17. So just it gives a overall picture of this one. I don't want to go through it. If the presentation is there, you can have this one. And then per capita availability of pulses in India. So it is going up every year. From you can see in 2005 it is 31.5 grams per day. Now it is 47.2 grams per day, the pulses consumption. is going up. And also kg per capita per year is also growing up. Especially you see from 11.5 kgs, it has gone up to 17.2 kgs in 2014. The constraints I'll briefly touch upon. It has got poor genetic yield potential and lack of technological breakthrough in the varietal development. We are concentrating mainly on vegetables and corn and paddy, but not much on. It is high volume, low value crops which is considered and grown mostly in marginal lands. Inadequate and imbalanced use of nutrients. Pulse suffer heavily from soil moisture stress and drought. Yield losses due to insect pests and diseases. They are very susceptible to pests and diseases. Lack of mechanization. Area expansion. Unutilized potential of rice fallows is there. There is a scope for increase in the rice fallows. So there are two approaches of pulse production. The area approach. Approach one is productivity enhancement and area expansion. In case of productivity enhancement, improving the seed replacement rate. Now it is very low. We would like to increase up to 45 to 50%. Now it is about 33 to 35%. And providing life-saving irrigation in pulse, we are concentrating on focusing the irrigation in the districts where the pulses are grown. One or two life-saving irrigations will almost double the productivity. Ensuring availability of critical inputs, timely inputs of like biofertilizers, micronutrients and biopesticides at field level. Mechanization for pulse production, farm machinery for essential agriculture operation like tillage, planting, harvesting, intercultivation. I must tell that the ICRISAT has developed for chickpea mechanized harvesting varieties. Intercropping, the area expansion. I don't want to get into the details, but one thing I would like to tell that in the last 2 years, we are targeting rice fallows. After harvesting of rice, the land is left fallow. We have mapped these rice fallow areas through remote sensing. Wherever there is a potentiality where the moisture is there, so we are growing pulses and oil seeds in these, especially in eastern India, like Bihar, West Bengal, Orissa, Assam, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. These are the areas we are targeting on rice fallows, as a result of which there is a lot of improvement in production and productivity. That I have already mentioned about rice fallows. And the policy initiatives are taken for self-sufficiency in pulses. I heard Mr. Chandrasekhar, who had advised, I've taken all his points very seriously. I've noted down. I'll discuss with my senior officers in the government. So I'm the mission director for National Food Security Mission. It was launched in 2007-8 with the objective to increase the pulse production by 2 million tons by the end of 11th plan. The government has given top priority to increase the production of pulses in the country through area expansion, productivity enhancement. The pulse production was increased from 14.2 million tons in 2006-7 to now it is 22.95 million tons in 2016-17. And NFSA was continued in 12th plan period. And now I must tell that we are out of 1500 to 1700 crores we've allocated for an NFSM. 60% of funds are only for pulses. There is concentration on pulses. Then the financial assistance for various interventions like demonstrations, improved technologies, distribution of quality seeds of new varieties, integrated pest management, soil amendments, farm machinery. For all these components, we are funding from Food Security Mission and also Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. Under revamped NFSM, pulse component of NFS extended from 468 districts to 638 districts. Now all the districts in the country are covered under NFSM pulses, which was not there earlier. Cultivation of pulses as intercrop with cereals, oil seeds, commercial crops, and on the farm bunds of paddy fields, especially in Andhra Pradesh and Orissa and Bihar. It's very popular on bunds. The pigeon peas is grown. At least 30% of the cluster demonstration under NFSM and BGRE, that is bringing green revolution in eastern India, are being conducted by adopting cropping systems approach. Under NFSM, a program of, I'll just rush through, sorry. And just only 2-3 slides are left now. We are also from production centric to now processing and market centric, because the prices are crashing, the farmers are not getting MSP. So now we are concentrating on formation of farmers producer organizations, and we are also concentrating on processing and milling, packaging. All these things are included under Food Security Mission. About 30% of funds are now for this post-production of pulses. So just, we have also created seed hubs. 150 seed hubs have been created in the country, which are under state agriculture universities and ICAR institutes, in which each seed hub was given 1.5 crore rupees of money, and in which 50 lakhs for creation of infrastructure and 1 crore for revolving fund. So almost the work has completed now, as a result of which there is a lot of improvement of quality seed and seed being distributed. And also we have additional breeder seed production is also we have taken up in a big way in state agriculture universities and ICAR institutes. Cluster demonstrations we have already discussed. I don't want to get into this. And seed mini kits of pulses, we are supplying about 10 lakh mini kits we are supplying of all the pulses in Kharif as well as Rabi. Free of cost it is given to the farmers. The high yielding varieties which are released within 10 years, these varieties are popularized. This is a minimum support price which we have announced, which is going up every year. Here I would also like to mention that we have increased the import duty. Our friend G. Chandrasekhar may not agree. He is saying that the import should be promoted. We should make our pulses competitive, but our farmers are not getting the remunerative prices. I think we have to, it is a paradox, it is a contradiction. So we would like to, I think in this pulses conclave, we must come. So how the farmers will get the benefit. So I think with this, I thank you very much for your patience. Now we have got our panelists. I would request Dr. Puran Gaur, is a chickpea breeder from ICRISAT. He has got vast experience. For the last so many years, I'm associated with him. So I would request him to speak on the chickpea breeding.
Thanks, Dr. Rajender. As he said, I'm representing ICRISAT, which is International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics, and it has a mandate for 2 pulse crop, chickpea and pigeon pea, global mandate for that. Thanks organizers for inviting ICRISAT to this. This is regarding post-rainy season pulses, Rabi pulses. where, chickpea is the major pulse. Then you have lentil, lathyrus, and then some areas mung bean is also used. If you see the past, I will say that India made remarkable progress in chickpea production. And this is simply if you see the area where we lost about 4 million hectare area in north during the past 60 years because of the expansion of irrigation and wheat cultivations, that we gained in central and southern India. This many times remains unrecognized because you lost 4 million here, you gained 4.7 million there, you feel that not much change. But if you compare with the global rest of the world, what is about 4 million hectares, that much India gained in central and southern India in chickpea. It's a big achievement. Even if you compare that, in fact, I was doing some calculations that in India, if you take the remaining world, in past 60 years, India reached from 2.23 million hectares to 6.25 million hectares in central and southern India, whereas the rest of the world moved from 2.5 to 4.12 million hectares. In fact, in productions, India made in that area 493%, 5 times, increase in production, where it is 150% in the rest of the world. Now, what point I want to emphasize is that the technologies which have been developed, specifically the varieties, which was made it possible to grow this crop in a very short season environment. Early maturing varieties, drought-tolerant varieties, heat-tolerant varieties, made it possible to grow this cool season crop, which was earlier confined in North India to central and southern India. And now this is also going to help us when we talk of, Dr. Rajender says that, we have about 10 million hectares area of rice fallows where there is opportunity of post-rainy season pulses like chickpea, lentil, and you have varieties which will suit very well there. In recent years, I will say we have made very good progress in development of heat-tolerant varieties. Even in chickpea, you can grow varieties at 30 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius. Now, another thing is, of course, for the rice fallows, you need to have technologies for crop establishments, and the kind of efforts government of India is making. Definitely the area under post-rainy season pulses is going to enhance there. And then another thing he mentioned is for the Rabi pulses is actually the change in mechanizations. If you see the crop chickpea and lentil in all developed countries, they are harvested by combine harvesters. But if you see India and neighboring countries, Pakistan, Myanmar, and other countries, it's all manually. Simply because we didn't pay earlier attention on the plant type. It's not, magic bullet, it's just you need the taller and erect type plants. Now, recent years, we have paid highest emphasis on that. As Dr. Rajender mentioned, already 3 varieties released in last 2 years, and many are in pipelines. And you will see that this will bring a big change in pulse production in India, the mechanizations. It will enhance the profitability to the farmers, attract the youth to the cultivation of pulses. So these are some of the chances. And further, in that, like herbicide tolerance and all those things are being added. So there are immense opportunities for pulses in the future. Another thing briefly I want to mention is that pulses we take it for mostly for nutritional security, not for food security because you have the staple cereals. Now, the thinking is of the scientific community is that in pulses like in chickpea, if we can further enhance the protein content and iron and zinc content, the people will get from the same amount of the pulses they eat, at least 25% higher protein and at least double iron and zinc. That's the kind of work which is also going on in these areas. Looking at the scenarios which I see, even the climate change we mentioned, for post-rainy seasons, we are predicting that if the global warming happens continuously, maybe northern India become like a central India and central India become like southern India. But you can see that in some of the crops, we already have varieties where maybe central India varieties can go to northern India and southern India will go to central India, and we will need little, better varieties, maybe more early varieties and drought and heat tolerant for southern India. So I think the technological interventions in these areas are moving, with the pace, and the kind of initiatives the government has taken in pulses production in India will continue to help the countries to grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gaur. Now I would request Nirav Desai, the director of GGN. He will speak on the Rabi pulses. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. After listening to two very good dignitaries, more from the government side, I would say I'm more from the industry, or more from the research side of the industry, where we analyze about how's the crop production in the country for various agricultural products, how's the supply-demand situation. So overall, this Rabi season, I think the area we've been seeing has been increasing. Last year also we saw an increase in area. The yields, moreover, are faring out to be good, maybe same of last year or slightly better. But the major increase might be coming in from areas that are coming. So the area increase is higher. And the way the SNDs have changed in the last 2 years, last year, when we met in Jaipur, the market did not know what kind of biting situation we were in at that time, when the local crops were starting to know. The Kharif was like nearly 20%, 30% came into the market, and Rabi was just going to come. People did not understand the shortage that we were facing. And we saw a huge shortage, a big rally in the market, and I think one of we have a very famous stock market analyst, and he says mother of bull runs. So we saw that mother of bull runs in the pulses market that year, followed by very painful fall in the last 2 years. So I would say that this year's supply and demand situation also seems to be not very optimistic price-wise. So the supply seems to be quite good overall on the pulses scenario. Rabi pulses, particularly chana, Kabuli chana production are expected to be about, it's too early to say, we've not done any very in-depth ground study, but at least 5 to 15% higher from last year. Whereas the last year's crop was also higher from the lowest low that we had by about 20 to 30% higher. So we are well supplied again this year, it seems. But then case to case basis, there might be some crops like lentils, which might be important to see, because there is a big dependence on import if we talk about the amount of production that we do here and the import that comes in. Now, though I was not told to speak like this, I was supposed to talk in the panel discussion. So I will give my perspective of the production or the yield issues that we are facing in India. I think from the commercial aspect, or when we go to visit the farms, there are very basic things that we see. First thing is stability of price. The Indian farmers don't get the stability of price. When they look at wheat or rice, it's something like for my friends from India, it'll be, they'll be able to relate it more. It's something like a fixed deposit interest rate. So if they are sowing wheat, they have a assured return that's going to come from their crop. Whereas when they sow pulses or other crops, they don't know. Maybe the price is at 5,000 rupees a quintal. When the crop will be harvested, the price might be 3,500 rupees a quintal. So farmer, when he's taking his decision, the price volatility that happens in pulses, oilseeds, cotton, or other products, there is a difference that they see when we talk and interact to them, when their decision of taking a crop is there. Second thing I think is irrigation is a big issue. And as we know, or a lot of people who don't know, chickpeas generally a farmer would prefer to take more wheat, but he takes chickpeas in the area of the farm where he'll not be able to give a lot of irrigation. So maybe chickpeas he only has to give 2 times irrigation. For wheat he has to give 5 to 6 times irrigation. So that's more like a compromised area that's coming in from the farmer's perspective. Now what happens, especially in the Rabi crops, and I would really like to thank the government. The last 2 years I've been seeing, they are in particularly giving very good MSPs for the Rabi crops. Because the Rabi crops, they need a lot of irrigation to be given. In Kharif, what happens, natural rain does the 80% of the job of the irrigation. So the irrigation now, coming on to the irrigation in the Rabi, what happens is, if you get a natural irrigation or if you have canals, the cost of, on a very lay language, cost of irrigation from a canal to a farmer is nearly 25 to 50 rupees a quintal cost only to the whole cost of his produce that he does. But if he has to irrigate it from a pump, as in like a bore well and then pump it, then his cost may go up to as high as 300 rupees or 350 rupees. This is, I'm talking if he does 2 times irrigation. If he does 5 times irrigation, that is much higher. So this is the reason why he always considers that cost when he is taking pulses. So cost of irrigation on a longer term basis, if the government can help them by bringing in more natural ways of getting irrigation like canals and other things, will be on a longer term very, very helpful to the farmers, I feel. The next thing I feel on the production side which affects is the practices. I think the government is doing a lot of work, but our country is very large. The population is so scattered. The farm holdings are so small. The average farm holding in India is 2.5 acres or below now. So every year on year, the same land is getting divided also. So this is also an issue. 70% of the farmers are the marginal or the smaller farmers. So they are not very affluent farmers. They don't put in a lot of infrastructure, a lot of good quality seed, a lot of good practices that have to be done. So I think these are the major issues that we see. Plus in this whole scenario, what also happens is, as I said, they would like to give whatever good that they would like to give is to wheat or to rice rather than a chana or a mustard. Because for them it's like, no, that is the crop that they are taking for the area which they are already considered that they'll not be able to put in a lot of effort in. So I think this is the scenario. But again, coming on to the commercial aspect, in India we are, we are not, especially for some crops, we are ourselves the biggest producers of these crops and pulses like chana. And I think the Indian pulses industry is really vulnerable because our production is based out of these marginal and small farmers with their not very good resistance or not very good, I would say, protection to their yields. So one year where they have a bad weather, the crop yields go down drastically lower. Plus last 2 years, the way the prices have been in pulses, on the ground, even after MSP, a lot of farmers have not been able to get good prices. So I think the coming year, we will start seeing the decline in areas in India. So as a pulses industry and the way India's growth in demand is happening in all sectors in consumable items, I think we are very vulnerable for supply hiccups 2 years later or 3 years later. And as we are seeing, a lot of producers who saw the pull of India's demand, produced more, were not able to get good prices. So I think it's a paradox, it's a very challenging situation for the pulses industries which has to be very well dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nirav. Now I would request Heetal Gandhi, the Director of CRISIL Research from Bombay. She will give her perspective on the Rabi pulses. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajender. We have got a good perspective from most of the panelists over here on Rabi production and what is expected to happen in this season. I think on the long tail, if you look at the Indian agri space, there are three significant trends that have emerged. One, area under cultivation has not increased, whether you look at Kharif or you look at Rabi. Two, yields have shown an improvement in some areas. So for example, if you look at one of the largest pulses, gram, you will see that there is almost a 10% improvement in yields if you look at average yields of the last 5 years as compared to the previous 5 years. So there is some progress that has happened on the yields, and that is what has resulted into the kind of production we are looking at. Three, a new area of cultivation has emerged in India, and that is horticulture. So there is a lot of shift from the farmer's side towards horticulture crops as well. However, there are certain things that have remained stagnant, or I would say that there is a very less progress. So the depth of the markets for agri commodities. B, infrastructure that can enable the farmer to cultivate under any odds, whether there are rains or no rains, and also to hold the commodity. I think in the beginning of the session it was being pointed out that pulses would be a commodity where the life is much higher as compared to any other agri commodity. You can store and consume it over a longer period of time, and therefore infrastructure development can make a huge difference. And C, we have become in a way more protectionist. I understand that this protectionism has stemmed from the fact that there is volatility in the market, but it is only improvement in competitiveness to face that volatility that can solve long-term problems of the farmers. There are two important initiatives which the government has moved during this union budget. One of them is 1.5 times MSP for the Kharif crops. Now, if you look at MSP composition, it's not important to actually just have the MSPs announced. It's important that you change the mix of your procurement. We at CRISIL believe that it's high time that commodities like wheat and paddy see lesser focus from the government in terms of procurement, and the procurement focus shifts more towards pulses. So if I have to actually look at 1.5 times MSP, it should mean that more money should come in the hands of the pulse farmers. However, if you look at the statistics, it shows that less than 5% of the pulses actually get procured by the government, and that too may not be even across years. Whereas if you look at wheat and paddy, almost 30% gets procured by the government. So any increase in MSP might actually not result into direct benefit to the pulses farmers and may not solve the problems. B, the other initiative that the government has come up with is that they have proposed they will set up a committee that would look at compensating farmers for any prices which are lower than MSP. Now, what does this mean? This means that if you look at total profits that typically the farmer community earns between Kharif and Rabi, it would be around 1.7 trillion rupees. And if you look at the top 15 crops that account for almost 80% of this production, and you look at the difference between MSP and mandi prices, you would see that the government would need to incur roughly 250 billion rupees of expenditure to give that cash in the hands of the farmers. Now, this may necessarily not result into long-term benefits. So while, because of the issues in the market today, we have taken the short-term measures, we need to invest more on the infrastructure side and the side that provides sustenance to the farmers. I think that is specifically important for the pulses farmers. So two important initiatives which should be immediately looked at by the government is A, strengthening their procurement mechanism for pulses, and B, ensuring that there is the infrastructure in place which includes irrigation as well as warehouses which can improve prospects of the holding power of the farmer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hital. Now I would like to ask Dr. Puran Gaur. You've been, a chickpea breeder for a long time. So what is the present yield level and what is the potential and how much and how, you know, and in the recent past, the productivity has gone up. So how much percentage has gone up? As Hital has mentioned that the area remained constant, but the productivity has gone up. How much it has gone up? Really, it has gone up. So I'd like in Telangana, especially in case of arhar and chickpea, the projection is low, but actually in the field it is more. As a result of there is a lot of procurement, there is a lot of demand for procurement, but we are unable to meet the demand. So just I would like you to give your comments on that, especially from the production and productivity point of view.
Yeah. Before I respond that, I want to again re-emphasize that when we talk of area, usually we take it totality and we always miss that point that, 4 million we lost there and 4 million we gained there. It's a big change in India. And so we always miss this point. I think we should remember that. And another thing is that comes to productivity. The earlier predictions were that if we move to southern India, where you have shorter growing environment, the productivity go down because you will have a shorter growing season. If you see all statistics, in the productivity we are getting highest in southern India. And very simple reason is that these are the farmers who started new. We had very low area, 50,000 hectare, now reached to 650,000 hectare. They all adopted new varieties, new technologies. And that's the reason why the productivity there is high as compared to other. There is tremendous scope of enhancing productivity even in central India and northern India, where we still have not reached the technologies. So 1.5 is, we were getting there. I think some of the farmers, they get easily 2.5, 3 tons. And there is a scope that, overall productivity of India from 1 to we can easily go to 1.2 at least, if not. Myanmar has reached 1.5, which is similar. You see now productivity of Myanmar has doubled in 15 years. Production has gone 5 times. So there is scope there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gaur. Hital and Nero, please, I want your quick response. As a policymaker for the last 2 years in this department, I have been dealing with the pulse production, of course, the food security mission. I'm facing the problem of contradiction. On the one hand, there is overproduction. The production productivity has gone up. On the other hand, the prices are crashing. And there is a lot of pressure from I'm not using the pressure, but there is also the countries would like to export it to India. We are stopping them in the form of imposing import duty. We are quantitative restrictions we have put up. So really this is a big contradiction. Number 2, the prices. The productivity shown is very low, but actual productivity is more in some states, because of insurance policies, so that they can project low. But when it comes to the procurement, we have got price support scheme, PSS, and PSF, Price Stabilization Fund. There are 2 schemes. So we are getting more demand, for under PSS scheme and PSF scheme for more procurement. But on the other hand, there's the pressure from the other countries to export it to India. So how to deal with this contradiction? What are, just I want your response, I want your suggestion even for the whole house. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think one very important thing which I noticed is that last year when the pulses prices were falling, everybody was going gung-ho about that, look at gram. And we are allowing exports in that specific pulse category, and that is resulting into profitability being pretty high. This year also we have allowed exports to continue, but because there has been a global oversupply situation, the prices have crashed, and today we have mandi prices lower than the MSPs in that category as well. If you look at Madhya Pradesh, where a large proportion of this export commodity grows, the profitability of farmers is expected to reduce to half this Rabi season. So there is no direct answer on to, should we allow exports always, or should we have restrictions on exports?
Now we have lifted the ban on exports.
Yeah, so
We are exporting.
correct. So I believe that exports and strengthening of competitiveness over the long term should be the goal that the government should have. Uh, One is allowing exports, and two is also enabling that entire infrastructure for the export side of it. So when I'm talking about infrastructure, is about having adequate warehouse facilities available for the farmers as well as for the traders. Two is that when we impose restrictions, the restrictions for import of commodities, it is all right to have those restrictions, but they should be time bound, where we say that we are bringing about these import restrictions for a specific time frame. That provides confidence to our partners that it's a short term measure. I would like to quote an example of Iran, for example. We are the largest exporters of basmati rice to Iran, and they have been a large trading partner. We have also had agreements with them on settlement of the entire this, so that India doesn't come under the sanctions of US and Europe. But Iran last year did impose restrictions on imports from India. There were both quantitative restrictions as well as price restrictions, and that is because they were faced with a supply glut internally. So there is no harm in having short-term restrictions, because you want to provide that support to the farmer then and there. But those restrictions have to be very clear that they are for a short-term period, so that they do not discourage our partners. So that is one solution on the export side of it. As far as the profitability of the farmers is concerned, I believe that any kind of protectionist measure would only make the Indian farmer more less competitive. So his ability to compete will keep going down, and therefore providing MSP support or providing other kind of subsidies have to be over a period of time and should be phased off to ensure that farmers are more competitive. The investment should be in ensuring that we have better variety of seeds, where our productivity increases multifold. Even in commodities like rice, if you look at China, the yields are double or even more than that than of India. So those varieties of seeds, even on the pulses side, is what is going to drive the differentiation.
Thank you, Hital. Nirav, can you respond?
Sure. First thing is, I'm so happy that a government official is so keen to listen to the industry. That's a commendable job. I would like to clap on that. Uh, yeah. So first thing is, I think we should have a market intelligence cell in agricultural ministry or something like that. Our reaction time is so slow that even the least aware market participants know that this crop is going to fall short, or this crop is going to be so much in production, that our actions come very late. And a very good example of this is 2 years or 3 years back, I was listening to Mr. Nitin Gadkari in one of the SOPA conferences. And that was the time where Arhar, as in tuar, prices had gone up, and there was a huge hue and cry. That time was 90 rupees or 95 rupees kg for tuar. So he said, okay, we got the information that we have to import tuar, but we never had the information how much. So we imported 50,000 tons, whereas we should have booked maybe 2 lakh tons or 2.5 lakh tons at that time. So that is why I mean to say there should be a market intelligence cell where we know what is the supply demand situation of India. So because India's plight is we have a very huge consumer base, so we have to safeguard the interest of the consumers, as well as we have a very big farmer base. So we have to safeguard their interest also. So I think that market intelligence will tell the government when to keep what policy. And I agree with Ms. Hedel that our policies be so transparent that people who are exporting to us also know that this restriction on import or higher import tariff is there for 3 months when the Indian harvest is happening. Later on, that will be reduced. There are a lot of countries which have started playing on tariff with the prices of the commodity, which I think this time round in this discussion in the ministry, I saw that they are trying to build up a mechanism. If the prices are 20% below the MSP, then we will remove the export bans and we will improve the import duties. And if the prices are about 20%, we will reduce the import duties, impose some export bans. So something like that as a mechanism which all will sooner or later the market will adjust to that. Even the exporting nations will adjust to that and we'll be able to come up with that. Second thing is, I think infrastructure in the point I feel is required is more towards aiding the farmer to increase his yield, because the immediate kind of solution that we come out with is a price, but the price thing is economically very devastating. So 1 year when we improve the MSP, even if we support by giving the higher prices on MSP and procuring at that price, the next year we are not able to support it or something like that happens. So I think that's the situation.
Thank you so much, Nirav, Dr. Puran Gaur, and Hital, for your excellent perspective on the from the industry point of view, from the research point of view, and I try to give the perspective from the government point of view. So what is important is, this is really a big contradiction which we are facing. Our friends, I meet from embassies from Argentina, Chile and Peru, they're all here, and I keep meeting them. So, trade relations are there, but at the same time we have got, domestic production, international relations and trade and all these things. We are really facing problem. We have to, find balance it, and traders should really cooperate from the, from the farmer's point of view. It's farmer's welfare. How he gets the remunerative prices for his produce. That's very, very important. So thank you so much for your participation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Rajender and panel. Big round of applause. I'd like to request the panel to please wait with us for a moment. I'm afraid that we don't have much time for question and answers, because we're encroaching into sacrosanct time, which is lunchtime. But we do have time to present the mementos. May I please request Sunil Savla, Treasurer, IPGA, to please step up on stage and honor our panel, starting with our moderator, Dr. Rajender. Thank you, Dr. Rajender, Joint Secretary, Crops and Seeds, Ministry of Agriculture, Farmers Welfare, Government of India. A memento. This is the most important part of the agenda of any conclave or seminar. It's always the break. So lunch break is on. We shall be reconvening exactly